My name is Kiv, and I am 66 years old. I have lived long enough to understand that life has strange ways of teaching lessons. Some lessons come through joy, some through pain, and some arrive quietly on a night you never forget. The night my son looked at me and said, "You'll embarrass me at the corporate party. Just stay home," was one of those nights. But what happened after that changed both of our lives forever. I spent most of my life doing simple work. For 38 years, I worked as a school maintenance man. I fixed broken desks, repaired leaking pipes, cleaned hallways, and sometimes stayed late to make sure classrooms were ready for the next day. To most people, I was invisible. But to me, that school was my pride. Because it paid the bills. Because it helped me raise my son. And because every nail I hammered and every floor I polished reminded me that I was building something bigger than myself. I was building Daniel's future. My wife Maria and I raised Daniel in a small house on the edge of town. We didn't have much money, but Maria always said something beautiful. "Kiv," she would smile, "a small home filled with love is richer than a mansion filled with pride." Maria passed away 12 years ago, but her words still echo in my heart. Daniel was always a bright child. Even as a boy, he asked questions about everything. "Dad, why do buildings stand up? Dad, how do businesses make money? Dad, how do people become rich?" I didn't always have the answers, but I always encouraged him. "Study hard," I would say, "and one day you'll build something great." And he did. Daniel studied business at university, graduated with honors, and slowly climbed the ladder in a powerful corporate company. Every promotion he received felt like a victory to me. Even though my hands were rough and my clothes were simple, I felt proud knowing my son wore sharp suits and worked in tall glass buildings. One afternoon, Daniel came to visit. He looked excited. "Dad, I got promoted," he said. My heart swelled. "That's wonderful, son." He smiled. "There's going to be a huge corporate celebration next Friday. Executives, investors, directors, everyone will be there." I clapped my hands. "That's amazing, I'd love to come." But the moment I said those words, his smile faded. He looked at my old sweater, my worn-out shoes, my gray hair, and then he sighed. "Dad, I don't think that's a good idea." I frowned slightly. "Why not?" He hesitated before saying something that pierced deeper than any insult from a stranger ever could. "You'll embarrass me at the corporate party. Just stay home." For a moment, time stopped. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply felt something inside my chest grow very heavy. I forced a small smile. "If that's what you want, son." Daniel seemed relieved. "Thanks, Dad, you understand." Yes, I understood more than he realized. That evening, I sat alone at the kitchen table. Maria's photo stood on the shelf nearby. I looked at her picture and spoke softly. Did we raise him wrong? Of course, the photo didn't answer. But memories did. I remembered Daniel as a child running into my arms after school. I remembered carrying him on my shoulders. I remembered working overtime so he could buy textbooks. Love like that doesn't disappear overnight. Still, something inside me whispered a quiet thought. I want to see my son succeed. And so I made a decision. I would go to the party. Not to prove anything. Not to embarrass him. But simply to stand in the same room and watch the life he had built. Friday night arrived. I opened the wardrobe Maria and I had bought decades ago. Inside hung my only formal suit. It was old, but Maria had chosen it carefully years ago. You look handsome in this, she had said. I brushed the jacket carefully, polished my shoes, combed my silver hair. Then I looked in the mirror. A tired old man stared back. But I also saw something else. A father who had never stopped loving his son. "All right, Kiv," I said quietly. "Let's go." The corporate gala was held at the most luxurious hotel in the city. Tall glass doors reflected golden lights. Expensive cars lined the entrance. For a moment, I felt like I didn't belong there. But then I remembered Maria's words. "Your dignity does not depend on what you wear." So I stepped inside. The ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like stars. Soft music floated through the air. Elegant guests laughed and talked about business deals and investments. I stood quietly near the entrance, feeling like a stranger in a different world. Then I saw Daniel across the room. He looked confident, shaking hands with executives and speaking with authority. My heart filled with pride. That was my boy. The same child who once asked me how buildings stood tall. But then he looked toward the door and saw me. His smile disappeared instantly. He hurried over. "Dad, what are you doing here?" His voice was tight with worry. "I came to support you," I said gently. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered urgently. "People will notice." I felt the sting again. But before I could reply, a voice behind us spoke loudly. "Kiv, is that really you?" I turned around. A tall, confident man in an expensive suit walked toward me with disbelief in his eyes. Then suddenly he smiled widely. "It is you." Before I could react, he hugged me warmly. Daniel looked confused. "Mr. Anderson." The man laughed. "Yes, Daniel, but before I was a CEO, I was just a struggling student." He turned to me. "You probably don't remember how much you helped me." And then memories returned. Thomas Anderson, a quiet boy who used to stay late in the school science lab because his home life was difficult. I used to unlock the building so he could study. Sometimes I brought him sandwiches when I noticed he hadn't eaten. You're the CEO?" I asked softly. Thomas nodded. "And I owe part of my success to you." The surrounding guests grew silent as he continued. "When everyone else ignored me, this man treated me with kindness. He placed a hand on my shoulder. He believed in me when nobody else did." He raised his glass. "The scholarship program our company runs today." He smiled warmly. That idea came from a conversation I once had with Kiv while he was fixing a broken classroom door. Applause slowly filled the room. Executives nodded with admiration. Daniel stood frozen beside me. For the first time that night, he looked at me not with embarrassment, but with awe. Later that evening, Daniel found me near the balcony. His voice trembled. "Dad, I'm so sorry." I looked at him quietly. "I forgot where I came from," he said. "I forgot who helped me get here." Tears filled his eyes. I was ashamed of the wrong things. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Son," I said softly, "success is not about who stands above others. It's about who remembers to lift others up." He nodded slowly. And for the first time in many years, he hugged me the way he did when he was a little boy. That night, we left the hotel together. Not as a wealthy executive and a poor old man, but as a father and a son who had rediscovered something priceless. Respect, love, and gratitude. Moral of the story: true greatness is not measured by wealth, status, or appearances. The greatest people are those who remember their roots and honor the hands that helped them rise. Because sometimes the quietest people carry the strongest dignity.